CANNELLA, epilepsy-targeted cannabis. What is epilepsy? Types of seizures. See the difference between current treatments, alternative treatments, and an in-depth look on how CBD treats epilepsy. Founder and CEO of CANNELLA, epilepsy-targeted cannabis. From Israel, Inbar Paz Benayoun.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Inbar Paz Benayoun. I'm one of the co-founders of CANNELLA, epilepsy-targeted cannabis. And I am here to share with you a little bit more about our idea and the company. I would like to share more with you about the way I did in cannabis. First, unfortunately, we cannot meet in person, although it was very interesting to hear my esteemed colleague, Mr. Schuster, that you all heard. And I can tell you a little bit more about myself. I am a lawyer in the corporate field. I'm coming from the field of capital market and securities law. During my work as a lawyer, I represented some companies. One of them was the first publicly traded in Israel in the field of cannabis. So the first time a company entered the TASE was when I represented the company. I was part of the team, obviously. And it was very exciting. It was the first time that the Israeli public could invest in a cannabis company. That helped to demolish the bad social stigma around cannabis. So it was very exciting. And along the way, I became the COO of that company. I went from working as a lawyer to be the COO, which was also very, very an interesting challenge for me. And then during the time I was working in the field of cannabis, the mentioned company was a regular grower in Israel, one of the largest actually. And then something happened that changed the course of my career when I went with one of my family members, a child in that case. And all of a sudden he had the first epilepsy seizure he ever had. So I saw that. And even though in my past, I used to serve in the Israeli army as a military paramedic, I stood by and couldn't help him. I was completely shocked. And that made me think that seeing a person suffer from epilepsy is very, very, very intense. So even if you're medically trained, it is going to be a challenge to arise above that and help that mentioned person. And also that people don't know how to help someone with an epilepsy seizure and they treat them like any other person, which is wrong. Because the first thing you have to do is to make sure that the person is safe, is not in danger of any object falling on him, and you have to call emergency help immediately. So instead of touching that person, moving him, trying to help him physically, that would be a mistake. And people don't know that because it is not as popular as other medical situations like heart attacks or strokes and so on. So after we talked about how to help a person in epilepsy, I will continue my story that when I saw that child having this epilepsy seizure, I did not know, of course, it is epilepsy. And thus began a journey of several years to try and balance him with medication. Now, about epilepsy medication and why cannabis is very important in the field of epilepsy. First of all, the conventional medication in epilepsy are effective in only 70%. That means that 30% of the patients would not react to medications in any dosage. So only 70%. If you're one of the lucky 70%, that is great, but you still have a long way to balance yourself. That means to try and take the medications, to see if it works, to write every day, how many seizures did you have, how did you feel, did you eat, and so on. So this way, as you can assume, it has a lot to do with the patient feedback. If we don't have the patient feedback, we cannot balance him with the proper medications. Now we have the 70% of people that medications can affect them, but they have to be adults, because with a child it's very difficult to go through every day as he goes to school and so on. So you have to be an adult and you have to have proper communication. And bad luck, usually epilepsy doesn't go with the proper communication. It comes with other neurological disorders, as I mentioned. So it's many, many less percentage of the people that are even possible to be balanced with conventional medication. It's much less than 70%. But let's assume that you are one of the communicating adults and you can be balanced with medications. You start taking the medications and then you realize it has many, many side effects as it affects your love, your appetite, your communication, your relationship with other people. It is very, very problematic, and many patients choose not to take their medications so they can have their course of life as they're used to. So now we're even achieving less people that can be balanced and effectively are balanced with epilepsy conventional medications. Enters cannabis with much, much, much less percentage of side effects, if any. You can balance an epilepsy patient by using high CBD material. The THC percentage can be and should be, in this case, less than 1% for sure, sometimes even less than 0.5%. And so we see that it is much better to give an epilepsy patient something that has much less side effects, and that you can see the development of how the seizures are getting less and less, even without the proper feedback from the patient. Another thing I wanted to say, that when the medications are not working, like we saw in the 30% to begin with, often they can be offered to insert a pacemaker, which is an invasive surgical procedure. Pacemaker, like you put for your heart, they put it on your neck and upper section of your chest to try and set the right pace, as epilepsy is a disruption of the electrical pace in the brain. So this is very invasive. It is not recommended for anyone, especially not for kids. And coming back to the kid that from my family and the episode that we have, we started to try and make him take the medications. He couldn't take it because he was only a kid and suffered from other neurological disorders. So he could not take the medications, could not give us the proper feedback. So there was no other way but trying cannabis. And luckily, here in Israel, we found some very edge doctors that would try and give epilepsy patients the cannabis and the CBD materials. So we try, and it was basically a success story, which made me think and realize that this is what I need to do, because there are many, many kids like my family member that doesn't have, just in case, someone in their family who's a lawyer, who's working in the cannabis field, who can help him reach out to the best doctors. There are many kids that don't have this facility. And we in Cannella this is one of our main goals, to make the proper products for children. Other products in the market, there are many products now that you can see that are CBD for epilepsy, and this is great. And if you do it in a medical grade like we do, that is perfect. And if you can see the dosage that is every time the same, great. But our product is, of course, medical grade, but also doesn't have the taste or the smell of the cannabis plant. And therefore, it is very suitable for children. Unfortunately, you cannot see in the presentation, but I would love to speak and send the presentation with any one of you later on, and to show you our products that I cannot show you right now. One of them is the CBD oil, like many other companies are doing. Only us is, of course, medically grade, raising here in Israel in the best terms and standards. And the other one is in sprinkles form, which makes it a lot easier to put the dosage in a child food and to make sure he's taking his medication and to make sure he's taking the right dosage. So this is very children appropriate. So other products, as I mentioned, are suitable from 2 years and up. But unfortunately, you can suffer from epilepsy during your entire life, since the moment you are born. So for children from the ages of 0 to 2, our products are developed with the best doctors and science colleagues that we have in the company, are developed especially in these cases where the other products are not suitable due to age limit. So this is somewhat a conclusion of our company. I would like to take questions if you have, and of course continue the conversation via mail or any other form when I can send the presentation and continue explaining. So please, if you have any question, this is the right time.
Thank you so much for your valuable input and professional insights. Can you hear me?
Yes, of course. Thank you for the kind words.
So my question for you is, for the 30% of patients that traditional or conventional medicine is ineffective, how effective is CBD for that 30%?
Great question. We're going to examine it in our clinical trial next year. We already have a clinical trial with one of the leading Israeli hospitals in Tel Aviv, Israel. And we're going to examine it from the personal view alone, not scientific. I saw for myself how cannabis helps these 30%, but not only. As I mentioned, the horrible side effects of conventional medications, also the other 70% would like to take, to try cannabis. And doctors here in Israel are given prescription for cannabis, even if you are not one of the unlucky 30% that cannot use it, because it has no side effects. So it's worth a trying. But we're going to examine it in our clinical trial that is going to be very large, and it was very challenging to achieve all the documentation, of course, but we eventually have it. And by this time next year, we will begin this clinical trial about the 30%. But as I mentioned, everyone that suffers from epilepsy can try it. It is not a substitution for the medications, but often what doctors are doing is making it together with the medication. That means you're still taking the medications and try and see if cannabis also helps to diminish the seizures.